In this video, we are going to take a look at the career of one of the most surprising and controversial figures of the century. That figure is Mikheil Saakashvili. Wait a second, you don't know him? Well, imagine a person who is capable of being one of the best allies of Washington and at the same time one of the greatest enemies of Vladimir Putin. He was president of one country, a candidate to preside over another, and today he doesn't even have a nationality. This is a man, a politician worthy of starring in his very own political thriller. In fact, now that I mention it, probably wouldn't be surprising to see a Netflix original produced about this guy. Well, this is today's character for VisualPolitik. It is Mikheil Saakashvili.
Misha the Governor.
In order to start our story, we need to go back to May the 30th, 2015. That day, Petro Poroshenko, the president of Ukraine, appointed Mikheil Saakashvili as the governor of the province of Odessa. With this position, Misha was given Ukrainian nationality. However, to become a Ukrainian citizen, he had to give up citizenship from his home country, Georgia, a country he had led as president between 2004 and 2013. His addition to the Ukrainian government was quite the treat for the media, and, well, that's only logical. You see, at that time, Ukraine was going through a really tense situation. After the so-called Maidan Revolution and the fall of pro-Russian President Viktor Yanukovych, there was almost a feeling of civil war in Ukraine, a war between Kiev supporters and the supporters of Moscow, and Odessa was one of the most pro-Russian provinces. So you can imagine the picture, the foreign ex-president, and not just any ex-president, but one of Putin's worst enemies, appointed as the governor of Odessa. This event was hugely discussed in all the national media as well as the international press. The president of Ukraine, who was by the way an old friend and fellow college student of Misha's, Petro Poroshenko, described Misha as the man who makes possible the impossible. Pretty flattering, right? At that time, their friendship, well, it seemed bulletproof. Well, the mission of the new governor was to stabilize Odessa, grant power to Kiev, chase corruption, and set the groundwork for the region to prosper. In order to carry it all out, Misha brought many of his former collaborators from Georgia. He also hired many Ukrainian young professionals who he thought to be corruption-free, like Yulia Marushevska, an activist who became famous here on YouTube with the video I Am a Ukrainian. Misha also brought in some people from Putin's opposition in Russia, like the Russian activist Maria Gaida, who was appointed vice governor no less. There was a lot to do, and it had to be done fast. So, well, as it was said, so it was done. Once he took the Odessa governorship, the new governor started a thorough investigation to find and punish corrupt public workers. He changed most of the high-level positions in the public administration, he simplified the process for creating companies, and introduced independent controls, and even liberated public beaches that had been illegally occupied so that once again Odessa's citizens joined them. And hold on a second here, because Misha has a strange work methodology, and it is as effective as it is controversial. If anything doesn't work properly and is corrupt, he just dismantles it, he fires all the workers, and he sets it up again. He did the same during his time in office in Georgia with the traffic police, and he threatened to do it again with the Odessa port, the largest commercial port in Ukraine, well known for bribes and payments to customs officers.
We need to fire them all. We have 130 new people. They are young, new, and trained, and the old ones are hopeless. Mikheil Saakashvili.
In the end, though, he only had to fire some of the customs officers so that the corruption would stop. Consider this.
A number of businessmen noted that bribes at the port really had stopped in recent months, mainly because people were scared of becoming the next victim of one of Saakashvili's public anti-corruption tirades. Sean Walker, correspondent of The Guardian.
With all these changes, and with the help of Misha's contacts, Odessa started to receive help from the USA. And since Misha didn't trust the police, the first thing he did was establish an independent police force to fight corruption. This was a police force that was organized and trained by the FBI and the California Highway Patrol. So it looks like everything was going pretty good, right? Well, just hold on a second, because both Saakashvili and his team soon realized that it was going to be much, much harder than they anticipated. The problem was that Odessa was not a battlefield of Kiev supporters versus pro-Russians, but it was a battlefield between the rule of law and an oligarchy that has dominated Ukraine since its independence.
The Kingdom of Oligarchs.
More and more experts have said so. Ukraine's biggest problem is not Russia, it is their oligarchy. Corruption in Ukraine is so embedded that we could almost say it is a sort of feudal country where the nobility are, of course, these mighty oligarchs. They control the companies, the political power, the administration, even the media. Almost nothing escapes their power, which is consolidated both by money and by fear. Their level of impunity is almost absolute. Police, government, judges, they're all a part of the game. Things have been this way since Ukraine got its independence, but since the Maidan Revolution, it's all got a whole lot worse. After the fall of the pro-Russian president, Viktor Yanukovych, and with the civil conflict the country was going through, the new government felt incapable of trusting the army or the police, since both institutions were corrupt, they were disorganized, and they were badly equipped. That is why he made a decision. He appointed several oligarchs as governors of some of the most vulnerable regions in the country. These oligarchs paid for their own private armies, and with nice incentives, the police followed their orders as well, earning a sum for the head of every separatist. Yep, as I told you, the government essentially placed the mafia directly in charge of several governorships. That was the case for Ihor Kolomoisky, who was appointed governor of Dnipropetrovsk. I'm sorry if I'm screwing the pronunciation up on that, this took like 17 takes. This region is one of the most important in the country economically speaking. So yes, this is the Ukraine Mikheil Saakashvili was dealing with.
There is not a single state enterprise in Ukraine that has not been usurped by one clan or another. Ivaras Abramovičius, former Minister of Economy and Trade of Ukraine.
As you can imagine, all these oligarchs did not welcome Misha or his reform agenda. Indeed, once he was even kicked out of an interview when he suggested all of these mafia members had to be sent to prison. Remember that the media is also the property of the oligarchy. The thing is, Misha soon started to work to fight and ultimately end the situation.
I will do whatever it takes for complete victory to rid Ukraine of this filth, of this corrupt scum, which capitalize on the blood of our soldiers, whose only motivation in life is to fill its own pockets, strengthen its own clan, and bleed Ukraine dry. Mikheil Saakashvili.
And so he did. Misha started to publicly report all kinds of influence peddling, favorable treatment, and privileges. On one occasion, he even came on national television and reported the details of a corrupt scheme of the airlines owned by Kolomoisky, an oligarch who nearly obtained a monopoly on national flights. The public report ended the situation and took many of the people involved to court, but as you can imagine, Mr. Kolomoisky didn't take it well. He promised to get his revenge, and here's what he said about Saakashvili in public.
When a dog without a muzzle bites someone, we need to punish both the dog and, more importantly, the owner. Ihor Kolomoisky.
Now, do not think that all Misha did was report the oligarchs. Not at all.
The train crash.
Saakashvili's reforms in Odessa didn't completely work. Many of them were stopped and sabotaged by the government in Kiev. This wasn't just the oligarchs. You see, corruption was so commonplace that it was difficult to tell the difference between the mafia and the authorities. Misha, he didn't think twice. The government became his target. Many analysts claim that this new war against the government had a hidden agenda, to take a leap into national politics. Well, maybe, but the thing is, he did it. He started by reporting the corruption of the very prime minister, Arseniy Yatsenyuk, and many ministers followed. This even included his own friend, the president Petro Poroshenko, the person who had placed him in Odessa.
What difference for Ukrainians does it make who will treat them like dirt? Poroshenko or Yanukovych? What difference who will steal from them? Mikheil Saakashvili.
The friendship didn't last long. As we have seen, Poroshenko appointed Misha governor in May of 2015. In just a year, the battle had begun. Finally, in November 2016, Misha resigned as governor and began his own political party, the MNF, and he soon gained more than 20,000 members. Yep, the former Georgian president now wanted to lead Ukraine. In his own words, he aspired to turn this disaster of a country into a complete European superpower. But you might now be wondering about the response of Poroshenko and the government to this campaign, and pay close attention here. In July 2017, Poroshenko took advantage of the fact that Misha was in the USA and he revoked his Ukrainian citizenship. All of a sudden, Mikheil Saakashvili was a stateless person. Now, if you think that stopped him, you are absolutely wrong. Look, when his nationality was taken away, Misha, he simply moved to Poland. And we have to say, Misha's a well-loved guy in Eastern Europe. In fact, many countries offered him citizenship, but no, Misha, he was determined to go back to Ukraine. And, well, that's exactly what he did. Despite the warnings of the government in Kiev, on September the 10th, surrounded by a supportive crowd, Misha crossed the border on foot between Poland and Ukraine. The images of his confrontation with the border guards, well, they're quite a sight. And so, what do you think he's up to now that he's back? Despite his irregular situation, Misha, he's campaigning around the country. But all of that said, there is still an important question. Why Mikheil Saakashvili?
The Saakashvili Revolution.
In 2003, Misha led a popular uprising against the corrupt Georgian political system of Eduard Shevardnadze. And in what is known as the Rose Revolution, he even made it to the Georgian parliament. Elections were held, and as the successful revolution's leader, Saakashvili easily beat the rest. The reform process started. There was a fierce fight against corruption and a tough policy towards Moscow that came to be a model for the former Soviet countries. But we are going to discuss these matters, as well as the dark and less glamorous side of Saakashvili, in a future video right here at VisualPolitik, so do subscribe. But for now, it's your turn. Do you think Misha will end up leading Ukraine? Well, please do leave your answers in the comments below, as well as in this survey. And do not forget to subscribe for brand new videos every Monday and every Thursday. And please do check out our friends at the Reconsider Media podcast. They provided the vocals in this episode that were not mine. And, well, if you're looking for something else to watch right now, please do check out my brand new channel, Biographics. We do biographies in the longer form. They're about 20 minutes each of notable people from history and the present day, politicians and others. So go check it out, link in the description below. And as always, thank you for watching.